Okay, I think we're live now. Sorry, I can't see something. Okay, great. We are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Holochain chat. Nope, we're not doing Holochain chats. See, this is what I get for doing something live and not looking at what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, welcome to Holo's launch brief today. This is a new formal short format live stream. We're going to do this every few weeks. You've probably seen the first couple that we've done in the past. And really, this is all about keeping everybody kind of up to date, apprised about how the work's going as we drive to the launch of the Holo Network. Remember, this is not an AMA. Well, it is an AMA. I take questions, but it's not an Ask Me Anything at all. It's really just focused on our launch of the Holo Network. So if questions come in about other things, we might not get to those. Or if some of the questions that have come in the past, we'll let you know, hey, we'll take that in another forum, take that in another place. But do expect that. My name is Mary Camacho. I'm the executive director of Holochain, and I'm also the CEO of Holo. We don't have anybody else joining me today. The team is heads down working. So a lot has been going on these past weeks. It's really been about pulling all the details together. Just getting at all the parts and pieces that have to be integrated, that have to work together, have to be tested together. And we've had some big wins about getting code complete on the service logger. I talked about that in the last update. And we also have gotten code complete on the basic Holo fuel migration. Those are two really important milestones that we needed to hit. We still have work left on those in terms of designing some of the protocols and addressing some of the dependencies as well as testing. But it's really great to have really moved through those. Those were two of the kind of pieces I'd say that were left that had some risk to them that we really wanted to sort out. Now, there's always risk, and that's kind of the process of moving to a launch, is that you're little by little closing out areas of risk in your development process. And so it's been really fun to watch things kind of get to those levels of completion. We've completed some key parts of our network monitoring. We're also our operations. I think I talked about this last time as well, because we're finalizing and testing all of the compliance integrations now. So, and we'll get to this a little bit later because we're gonna do. I'm gonna walk you guys through some things later in today's update. That some screenshots and things that people might not have seen. But anyway, this is really important because there's a lot of work about how we integrate with third parties. Also, our subsidiary reserve operations, they're in the thick of the licensing process right now. So we're handling basically all the remaining parts and pieces of this huge project. But in particular, and I really do think I mentioned this last time, we were doing an upgrade from Holochain. So Holochain, as you all know, it's the infrastructure that we're building the Holo network on. And I say that again because it's so critical to know that we've been building this for years, but it's like we've been building the infrastructure and the platform simultaneously. And as we would build the platform, we would start identifying things that we would still need from the infrastructure, that things we would need Holochain to be doing. So if you've seen this before and you look at our launch plan, you'll notice there's all those different colors in the launch plan. And in the particular shot that we were showing earlier, all the things that are in blue, that's Holochain, because we're still going back and forth with Holochain about finishing fine tune little pieces that are necessary for the Holo platform to work correctly. All right. Let's see here. We are going to, well, before I jump into the presentation, I want to say one other thing. This is related to the Holochain. We did an upgrade. We had been working on Holochain 0.16, I think. And if you go to the Holochain open source repo and look at what version they're on now, you'll probably see that the stable version is 0.3x. And then after that, there's a dev version or release candidate for a 0.4. We upgraded all the way to the very end of what Holochain has been working on. So that means we were putting in the latest and greatest, every new feature that they've added, all of the optimizations that they've done. Well, that was a huge deal for us. It took basically developers across all of our teams working on it. I have to say that upgrade was a little rough. It had so many places where it interacted with different functions and code bases. And we learned so much doing that, really, that will have us restructure better for future product development on our network once we get post-launch. Okay, that's sort of the where we've been, where we are, and I'm going to do a walkthrough now, and then I'm going to take some questions after that. So this is a walkthrough of registration. So we're going to do some screen sharing here, and I'm going to, these are all screenshots that I took today, this morning, while I was going through the process and testing. And so I was making some things up. But what registration for Holo means is that if you are a user of a Holoport, like if you own a Holoport and you are a host, you have to register. If you are a customer of hosting, basically you're paying to get something hosted on that cloud, on our distributed cloud. And you're going to be paying one of the hosts for that work, or multiple of the hosts, actually, always for that work. You register. If you're just a Holofuel user, you have to register. And what this means is that this gives you access to the application. Okay, so everybody registers at some level, and then there's other levels of identity verification depending on what you do. But this is just where you go. It's the registration screen. So you register to participate in the network, and then you fill out just a little tiny bit of information, quite honestly, and you do an email verification. Let's go to the next slide. So once you do that, you get your little thank you, go check your email, you receive this email, and this email is still set up for our QA environment. That's where I was doing this testing today. But basically, you can see I was saying, hey, I'm registering for Holofuel, and I get a link and I get a registration code. You take that and you're going to go to Holofuel and you're going to log in or sign up for the first time in the Holofuel application. So let's move to that one. Okay, great. So, whoa, what is on this screen? There's some interesting things here. The screen's actually in the midst of changing right now. We didn't have that pushed into the QA environment because we're still doing testing on the upgrade to V4 of Holochain. But notice there's this weird thing hanging up at the top of the screen. This is actually an extension that is in my browser. And this is the Holo Key Manager extension. I talked about this in one of the prior updates, and I'm going to walk through and show a couple of screenshots of this. I think we might have even done a blog on this or something recently, but I'm going to walk you through live right now. Well, not live. I'm going to walk you through the screenshots that I got earlier in the day. So let's go to the next one. So what really happens is that before you can sign up and log into Holo applications, if you're using the Holo hosted versions of the applications, you need to install the Holo Key Manager. So you can see this is up on the Chrome web store in the extension space, and you add it to Chrome. Let's go to the next one because it asks you, is this your first time setup? Great. Well, when you come in, once it's installed, it says setups required. So let's just move through this. You set up and you click that, and we'll move to the next one. And I put all of them here to make it nice and easy. And I'm going to walk you through from left to right, top to bottom. So basically, you're going to set a password. It's going to remind you, hey, this stuff is important. You need to be very, very careful. You need to remember these passwords and these passphrases, and you need to save these keys and seeds somewhere. That's really important because if something changes, you do an upgrade, you get into a new browser, you're going to want to have this to be able to reset this. So you're basically going to set a password. You're going to save some keys and seeds, your seed and key files, and you're going to confirm or set and confirm a passphrase. I might not have this in the exact order. And then you generate your key files. So it's really important for me. What I did is when I went through this process, as I started and created a password, I just went into my password manager that I use because that's a very good security measure. And I saved my password, I saved my passphrases, I saved my keys. Not everybody's willing to do that. You might not want to do that if this is for your Holofuel account. You might choose to put them somewhere else that's safe. Some people like to leave them in a locked space, keep them offline. Everybody's different about this stuff. I'm in a test environment right now, and I did it nice and easy so that I can just get back into my test environment. Let's go to the next slide. So then when you come back, you can use the key manager. You connect with it, and basically it's holding your login to the cloud console or to your Holofuel application. I was using both of them in my test earlier. And the first time through, you have to use the registration code that you received in the email, and you basically set up, hey, what is this? So that you can find it the next time, because you might have multiple logins to multiple versions of the applications. Great. Let's move on. That's the key manager. Once you've got that, you're basically in the apps. Now, this isn't going to be a walkthrough of the applications themselves, but I want to say a few more things about registration and about where things happen. So once you're in the application, so say I'm in the cloud console and I'm a customer and I have to buy Holofuel in order to pay invoices to hosts. I put this little thing up here on the top left of this screen. This is just a tiny little piece of a screen where there's a buy Holofuel button. When you buy Holofuel from a reserve account, and if you remember, reserve accounts are where we basically allow people to do their Holofuel swaps, hot to Holofuel swap, but it's also where people who are customers come to purchase Holofuel. Now, right now, the only way to purchase is with hot. So they have to go get hot, and then they can use hot to buy Holofuel. So that's how this works. When you click that, what it does is it opens up Springboard. Now, a lot of you may not have heard about Springboard yet. Springboard basically is the place where you can see, okay, I have Holofuel accounts, I have host console accounts, I'm also a customer. Because the reality is people can be all of those things. You can have all different types of Holo accounts because you might, one, be a host and have a Holoport. You might also have an app if you're somebody who builds applications and wants to host them. And you also might just have other personal Holofuel accounts unrelated to those things. So one of the things we built was this thing called Springboard, which you can log into by going to Springboard, or if you try to register a second time and it asks you, hey, have you done this before? Then all it does is it takes you directly, it sends you a link to basically log into Springboard via link. So let's go to the next screen and I'm going to show you Springboard. The reason we did this is, in one way, there's some information here. We know that people who are going to be hosts and people who are going to interact with Holo using the reserve account, you will need to have level 2 verification. That is KYC verification. So Springboard is one of the places from which you can do that. You can see there's a complete level 2 verification. That's one of those integrations that we have built to do it, because we're not doing it ourselves. We're using a third-party KYC provider, like most everybody does. But the big thing here also is, like I said, you can be a host, you can be a HAP manager, and you can be a Holofuel user. So you might have multiple accounts, and it makes it much easier. You can just register another account if you need one directly from here. Say you have 2 or 3 Holoports as a host, and you register and you need to register another one. I'm not sure if that particular use case works perfectly here, but just going to say this is essentially where you do to add accounts. You'll also see grayed out up here is the Buy Holofuel button itself. And the reason that's like so light, because it actually is green, is because as a user, there's no level 2 verification. So you can't do it until you have level 2 verification. So let's move on to the next one, I think, or that might be the last one. I'm not sure. Let's finish up with the screen sharing if that's the case. Yeah, great. So essentially, what I wanted to do was give people a little bit of a view before I got into some of the questions about some of the apps and some of the tools that people are going to be using at launch. And so I think it's important to start socializing the names of these things. What is, I think probably a lot of people have never heard about Springboard, this place where you can see all of these things together. Or you might not have known that in order to log into hosted applications, you'll at least Holo's hosted applications, you'll need to use the key manager. So these are some of the things we are starting to tell people about, starting to show people, starting to test with some alpha users, that sort of thing. Great. I want to note that in other places, this is other places online, Holo is writing blogs, we're having AMAs, and we're doing Holochain chats, all about things that are about Holofuel and about the Holofuel swap. I'm saying this because today was really about talking through registration processes, and I'm not really talking about Holofuel and the Holofuel swap in detail here. I just recorded a great Holochain chat this week with Jeff Emmett from Block Science, and I don't know what date that's going to go live, but he and I really got into Holofuel, some of the design of Holofuel as an asset-backed currency and how all of that works. And that's going to be going out. There's going to be some bits and pieces of it probably coming out early as we get some of the clips ready, and then we're going to put that chat out on YouTube as well. So you can be looking for that one in the future. Now I'm going to jump into questions. Great. Looking at time, I've been taking a lot of time, but we'll go a little bit longer just to make sure we get some good questions in. All right. So when will the one-to-one change to Holofuel begin? What will be the support function process at launch? Things like help desk, bug resolution, systems, or port recovery. So yes, everything starts at launch. So when the one-to-one swap for hot to Holofuel, the purchase of Holofuel with hot, that all begins upon launch. And we have a help desk. We do have a tier 2 support mechanism. So it's like we have a regular help desk, we have tier 2 support, we have our host forum. That's one of the places where a lot of activity will be happening and a lot of updates will be going out. Basically, everything that you need needs to go through the help desk. Any questions that can't be answered in FAQs, and there are links to FAQs throughout the applications at this point, and we're updating those as part of our final, path to launch as well. So that's the first one. When can I buy a Holoport? Holoports are not currently for sale. In post-launch, things will shift around that, and we'll have more to say about it later. What is the Holo solution for a Twitter type app, and how can people connect to it? Great. So I don't know if you guys have heard of or seen Newsfeed. It's actually more like Instagram. I don't know that it's quite as productized as Instagram. It certainly isn't filled with ads, but that should be available via the browser at launch. So that's one you can look for. I don't know about a Twitter clone other than that at this point. Maybe folks are working on something. What are some of the regulatory issues that are stopping you from listing hot on US exchanges? And once Holo launches, does this change things? Well, actually, yes. We're in dialogue again with US exchanges. And in the past, the fundamental issue really was that we didn't have our network live. So this is the time to be sorting that out, and we're sorting that out. So we'll share when there's things to share about that. Is the Holohost launch going to be in stealth mode, or will there be an announcement beforehand? This is interesting. I would say it's a bit of a mixture. A lot depends on how some of the final testing goes, really. We've integrated so much code in the past 2 months, and we're doing load testing, integration testing, and we had hoped to be feature complete before this point. I mean, with the work, but we are still finalizing little bits and pieces of those features, as I was describing earlier today. And the work's really been horizontal. So this is where we are, and we'll make some decisions as we move forward. But mostly things are going to be available. They're going to be generally available. So let's talk about the next question. I think I'll get a little bit more detail in one of the future questions that I saw come in. How is the Holo hosting org utilizing AI? For example, do you use it to write code? That's a good one. I'd say there's a lot of different opinions on this from people in the organization. We have people that find AI despicable, dangerous, and just not interested whatsoever. And we have other people who find immense value and productivity gains with UI. We don't have a singular approach. People do different things, and we try to be really honoring of how people interact with this stuff. together. I think what's more exciting is that the conversations we're having externally about how Holochain might support distributed AI in other products. I think that's really where the Holochain and AI really are going to be something you want to keep an eye on. Okay, let's see. Next question. Are you still sure launch will happen in Q3 2024? If yes, how big is the demand for hosting on Holo? Okay, great. This one's really, really important. We are still tracking for Q3, but it's gotten very, very tight. If we have any big or even not so big issues come up in the final integration testing and in UAT, that's user acceptance testing, it could throw the timeline potentially. I want to really stress Holo's platform launch, it gets us to general availability. That means that the hosting product that we're enabling with this is only one of many, many types of hosting. There's more demand right now for some of the other products that we know about and that are still to come on our roadmap. Products that expand and flesh out, so to speak, the offerings and the capabilities of the network. So we'll spend a lot more time talking about those in a future chat, and we'll start sharing much more about the Holo roadmap in the future as well. Moving on. Can the Holo organization remove a Holo port from Cloudflare? Is Holo in control after launch? Okay, this is interesting. So there's definitely a centralized aspect to Holo, right? Recall, this is about connecting peers to centralized tech like DNS, domain name services. That's the other protocols of the web are centralized. And so making it web capable is really interacting with the points of centralization. It isn't that we remove anybody from their Holo port. It's that we can ignore a Holo port. If something goes wrong, for example, with your Holo port and it's not hosting correctly, it's not responsive, we don't want somebody to be hitting that and not getting good service. So we have to be able to match to the Holo ports that can provide the services. We also have compliance requirements. And so we have to match to Holo ports that meet compliance requirements. If you think about it, we also are matching on the needs of the people purchasing hosting and the hosts who are offering the services. And so we have to make sure those kind of meet at the right levels. So the matching service that's happening in the middle, that is all about connecting things at the DNS, the domain name service layer, to be able to ensure that users get to the website that's hosting the application correctly, which is sitting on a port, as well as that the invoicing can happen between the peers. Now, some of this is happening in the peer-to-peer network layer, and some of it's happening on the internet layer. And so there are things that we can stop, and then there are things that we can't. And that's intentional. This is about a hybrid of these services in order to make these things work together. So let me see if there's anything else that I didn't say about this. Yeah. I think I really got to it. Holo doesn't live outside of the entire system, right? We are connecting systems, and we're distributing the work in ways that give people agency, but without being in the middle of the financial transactions. The purpose of the platform isn't about completely doing everything distributed or completely decentralized. It's about enabling things to happen without a company being in the middle of the financial transaction for the hosting. And that's really one of the things I wanted to stress. So next question is, how many Holoports do you expect to be active during launch, and what will be the expected credit limit of Holoport owners for Holofuel at the beginning? Well, I don't know how many are going to be active during launch. We've limited who's available in the alpha program, and so we're going to see people come online, and I don't know how fast or how many people are looking at that at this moment, but we'll share that information as it comes through. The expected credit limit of launch is 0. The credit limits don't come into play until after the 6-month initial period. So, and that's going to ramp up slowly. I don't really have a whole lot more details on that right now, but we'll be sharing more of that post-launch. Great. Users of HAPS need to register in the key manager. Aha. So this is really up to application developers. So Holo is the application developer of the Holo applications. So the Cloud Console and and HoloFuel as hosted applications, Holo requires you to use the key manager. When somebody else builds an application, like for instance, I was talking about Newsfeed, I have no idea if the application developer is going to require the use of the key manager. And that is really up to each app developer who is, putting the app on Holo hosting. Springboard is a Holochain application. No, Springboard right now is not a Holochain application. Springboard is Holo's a portal at Holo that is centralized, giving you the information. It's sort of connecting the dots between what we have to have as a company that is regulated and it has compliance needs for it. It's sort of like the flip side of that, made available for users. Please give an overview of the modules, parts, and how they link together to fulfill the process of buy, sell, host, etc. I'm not sure I can get into that one easily. I'm going to put that one into next week's or the next, I'm going to take a look at that for our next briefing and see if I can't prep something for that a little bit more for you, because that's a little bit more in the weeds. Great. What's the progress on blocking home internet bug on the Holo host forum? It still doesn't seem to be up. That's not something I can really address here. Maybe we can push that over to somebody in our delivery team that can talk about it. We've already talked about the ETA of launch, what more needs to be done, any blockers on the Holochain front. We've gotten through most of the blockers. Right now, Holochain is actually working on things that we need for things that are going to be developed post-launch. They've been updating a few pieces and they're doing a lot of testing right now for us and doing bug fixes on things that they find through testing processes. But they've really completed most of, at least as of this week, I think they've completed most of the code changes that were dependencies that we were waiting for. Okay, maybe I can share a bit about the process and work that's needed before the launch and what point we can expect more detailed info about the swap. I think I talked about that a little bit already. We will be talking about that more, some in other venues. And I think the first one is going to be the Holochain chat that I just was sharing about earlier. Great. Well, I think I've hit the end of the questions for now. Oh, will Newsfeed be? I have no idea if Newsfeed will be available on the phone. If you haven't heard, and I'll just say this as we wind up, it is super, super exciting that Holochain is working on mobile apps right now, on mobile right now. And we've shared a little bit on social, and we think we've started writing a little bit more about our partnership with Vola phones. They're a privacy-first mobile company based out of Germany, and they're offering services throughout parts of Europe. Super, super exciting to have Holochain have an embedded app on this phone. It's just so exciting. So we're really, there's lots more coming out about that in the coming couple weeks, and super, super happy to be playing in that space. And if you saw, there's some videos that show us at their demo days a month ago or so, and that was really exciting. Oh, there's one more question here. When will host port owners be asked to do KYC, et cetera, after launch? So that there's possible that some of the folks that are doing alpha testing might be asked to go through some processes for the alpha test. But basically all of that will be done after launch. This was a long one. We just went 30 minutes. Thanks, everybody. It was great chatting with you all. Thanks for all the questions. Appreciate everybody supporting us in the alpha program and everybody behind the scenes here, making sure we can get this live stream out. Really appreciate y'all as well. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.